Hey guys, welcome to Careers Uncorked. This is your co-host Sid.
And this is your co-host Sharfuz.
At Careers Uncorked, we host some amazing guests and hear their incredible stories.
And we're super excited to have you join us today.
Hey guys, welcome to Careers Uncorked.
Yeah, hey Sid, how's it going for you, man? Happy Saturday.
I know it's a great Saturday. Week's been great, and I'm really excited for today. I got my background light shining green just to support Circle Optics logo. And I also got glasses,
You got
for this
circle
session.
glasses, right?
Literally, yeah, it's circular.
I see that, but you're only gonna wait for today, right? Because are you planning on wearing that after?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I'm just going to support Circle Optics throughout for the rest of the weeks to come.
Okay, all right, that sounds great. We're super excited today because we are hosting this amazing entrepreneurs, University of Rochester grad, Zak and Ian, who and they've been running this startup called Circle Optics. And as I've been reading about it, Sid, I didn't know there was so much thing that goes on behind a 360-degree picture. We take all those panoramic pictures, and it's so much to do with just the technicality of it. I was like mind blown. I was just literally reading about their articles like yesterday. It's crazy, like what they're.
Yeah, I went to their website too, and I mean, it's absolutely crazy. Most startups in today's generation are focusing on software because that's very easy to produce, but hardware is definitely a different ballgame. So I'm really excited to hear about how they sort of got started with the whole hardware aspect of things.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of our audience is as well, especially. I think, so why don't we bring them to the stage, because I have a lot of questions to ask them. I literally have a list of it. So yeah, let's bring on Zak and Ian.
Hey guys, how are we doing?
We're doing well. How is Saturday going for both of you?
Saturday's pretty awesome. Yeah, just been chilling out, watching some cartoons. Pretty relaxed. Yeah. You guys?
Really awesome. All right, so to get us started for the audience, let's quickly do introductions of both of you guys. But let's do this. So we did this last time, it worked out great. So Ian, why don't you introduce Zak, and then Zak, you can introduce Ian.
Groovy.
All right, yeah. So Zak Niazi, originally from outside of New York City, University of Rochester graduate, Institute of Optics program. After finishing up there, he went and he worked with Harvard Medical for a little bit on the world's thinnest fiber scanning endoscope, I believe. Then he went out to Australia for a bit of time where he's working on an ISO board and doing some stuff with eyeglass measurements. Before kind of having the light bulb idea of how he could, create this 360 camera, which was something he initially was working on during final semester school there. He moved back to New York City, worked on it for a number of months, seemed like he had a real idea. So he decided, quit his job, file for patents, and try to build a prototype. And that's how we got here today.
Wow.
Damn.
I did.
Right, Zak, your turn.
So me and Ian have been buddies for about 12 years now. We met at the University of Rochester at Danforth. He is
old Danforth. They renovated. You guys don't even know Danforth.
I dig it. He has a background in project management, so he's managed multiple projects around the Rochester area. Super sharp in terms of organization skills and things like that. I'll tell you guys a fun little story. Ian used to live with me in Brooklyn, and one day I got home like a little bit late, and this was just around the time Pokemon Go came out, and so Ian's wandering around. I haven't gotten back yet. He's wandering around outside, and he gets stopped. He goes into try to catch a Squirtle in one of the parks. And goes into one of the parks, tries to catch the Squirtle, and next thing you know, he's got a flashlight on him, and like several police are saying, "Hey, you, freeze! Stop! What are you doing over there?" And Ian like looks at them, and he's like, "I was trying to catch a Squirtle." And so they hold him up because they were doing a drug bust at that point, and so they helped.
Oh God!
Wait for he was held up with several people, but yeah, that was just the time he was living with me, and 2 days after Pokemon Go came out. So yeah,
Well, his first night playing Pokemon Go, the second day that it was out,
Yeah.
and get detained. And there actually was a news article that got written about it in like Bushwick Daily or something about.
Oh my God, dude, that's so funny. Dude. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would get arrested for a Charmander, not a Squirtle, but I guess
or a Dragonite, yeah.
Dragonite. Dude, I love Dragonite. That's my most favorite Pokemon ever.
100%.
Dude, we grew up already. I love Dragonite. It was like my wallpaper when I was playing Pokemon. Like I was picking Pokemon Red, Silver. I spent so much time to catch a Dratini.
Oh my goodness, it's so good. Yeah.
Dude, I love you. I love you, man. You're it's amazing. Enough of Dragonite. Let's get.
Heck yeah.
All right. So, well, that was actually going to be one of our first questions to kick us off. Is what's sort of something you do outside of work? So, I guess Pokemon is something around the table. Zach, do you go out there and look for Squirtles as well?
So I actually have not got into Pokemon Go. I do rewatch the cartoons from time to time, and I really enjoy that. Okay. Pokemon Go is something I've thought about that since I was a kid, and always wanted to work on making like AR come true, and like being able to actually catch a Weedle and actually like see like Pokemon like in real life, like in mixed in. I think I'm still waiting. I'm not quite there with Pokemon Go and where that's at with smartphones. But once the technology develops and like you can actually project the image into your eye and you can actually see like a true what's called like a light field image. Once we get to that step, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be playing that next spot. So,
dude, we could finally actually become a Pokemon master.
Yeah, that's the dream.
Wow. I still want to be a Pokemon master. If anybody asks me what I want to do in life, Creature part of be a Pokemon master.
That's
I think
awesome.
you and Sid are a bit younger than Zach and I, but I think I was like 5 or 6 when the original blue version came out. And I remember my dad got me a Game Boy and got me that game. And I maxed out the Pokedex. I had every Pokemon. And I played every game straight through to like Crystal. I was like such a big Pokemon fan. And Pokemon Go came out in, was it like 2016? I was like so ready for that. So yeah, it's funny. It's not something I do much anymore, of course.
That was back when the Game Boys were, it was all black and white, like Pokemon Game Boy Pocket and stuff like that.
Wow.
I played all of them. I had a Game Boy Advance, green, red, crystal, all of them. Yeah, I think we're going on a tangent here. So Sid, I think you need to help us bring it back together. We're going.
I dig it. Yeah.
This is amazing.
All right, let's talk a little about like college. So what was like an experience that sort of helped you shape who you are today in terms of running your own company? So Ian, we'll start off with you and then jump on to Zach.
So Zach and I, not only did we meet our freshman year of college, but we were also fraternity brothers. So I joined my freshman year and Zach came along sophomore year, mostly because of me prodding him. So I think there was like so many leadership opportunities within that organization. So I held any number of positions, but then, afterwards my last positions was being what's called MA Commander, was really president of the fraternity. So, running a 30 to 35 man fraternity during my period of time is a lot like running a company. So I think that was like, a super great leadership experience for me to have at really like a formative time in my life. I think it was 21, 22 at the time. And even since then, I still, really continue to work with the fraternity. I was the alumni advisor for a number of years. And then now I oversee the housing board, and we went through with buying our first, house last year, which was really great, and doing all those sorts of things. So I think that was a, huge experience that not only transfers to like owning a company and running a company, but really it transfers to so many aspects of your life. So that was really great for me.
Yeah, Ian was always really good with the people skills, and like as president of the fraternity, really good at dealing with complex situations and challenging conversations. So definitely translates well in the COO position.
That's
cool.
Awesome.
And how about you, Zach? Any experiences in college that helped you sort of get this journey?
I think it even goes back to high school. I was on the wrestling team and did this summer boot camp 2 summers in a row called Jay Robinson. And it was considered by, I think it was like David Letterman, the second worst place to send your kid after the war in Iraq, because it's like so intense, like really challenging, really tough. That was back in like 2008.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that 2 summers, and just incredibly challenging. You need a lot of discipline to kind of like make it through. And 4 days in, you're like basically exhausted. You know, half the camp quits. They want to go home. And I think experiences like that really taught me kind of how to persevere and how to kind of like stick through with really challenging things. And then when I got to college, I studied optics. And at first, it was just incredibly challenging. Like at the University of Rochester, geometrical optics and some of the other coursework you take in the first year, it was very challenging in the year I took it. I think the reason I stuck through was because of that experience with wrestling. I just wanted to really try difficult things and push myself and excel at difficult things. And when I got to school, I was not very technical. I didn't know what a derivative was. It took me 6 months to kind of figure that out, just basic calculus.
Yeah.
So I really struggled, and I would reread the books like 2 times, trying to catch up to the other students. I think all that extra work, like kind of really applying myself and really kind of digging in, it allowed me to kind of excel in optics so that I could, later on in life be able to kind of invent novel things. So, yeah.
I think that statement still stands. Optics is still one of the most difficult majors at the UFR.
The hardest major at UFR, and to think that you studied optics and you weren't even done with that. I'm going to make a company that has to do like, I'm going to innovate optics. I'm going to make something amazing new. So that's
and that kind of started like third, fourth year, I started to realize, you could apply optics like so many different things, like AR, VR, and like this whole wave of computing that's coming out. Like that'd be really dope. And so suddenly that light bulb kind of went off, and I was like, this would be really cool to start, a company on that end one day.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, it's really cool just how you applied your learning towards thinking about solving problems out there. I think very few people do that in college, and that's such a great mindset to have. That's really super cool. And Sid, you'll have to forgive me for asking this, but what fraternity were you guys again? Like,
Sigma.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I was the Chi Phi, so I definitely.
I definitely spent some of my Fridays over at Chi Fridays there.
Chi Fridays, right?
Yeah. My first party ever in college, I remember going there, and a guy handed me a beer from Chi Phi, and I was super confused. I was like, do I have to pay him? Like, like $5?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we're responsible for a lot of that. But this is no, but it definitely, like, the leadership experiences like in college and Greek life or other student organization really helps you translate. So super props to that.
And the networking, I would say, is a huge part too. Not only are Zach and I fraternity brothers, we had someone intern with us last summer, and how we got connected with this person, he was just doing some software stuff for us, but he was a Sigma Nu, so he was, going into his final year of college. When we needed business development help towards the end of the Illuminate cohort, I looked at, all my connections on LinkedIn, and one of them was this guy who graduated like 5 years before me, but that's what he was doing. He had a consulting business, and he was a fraternity brother of mine, and I hadn't really spoken with him since he graduated, which was about 10 years prior. But I reached out to him. I was like, hey, you're still in Rochester. Do you think we could set up a meeting? And there's just been so many instances of that where Zach pretty early on was using someone that graduated 30 years before us, who was this like optical guy. He's like, hey, do you mind like looking at some of my designs here and give me some feedback on this? And we were able to make that connection as well.
Yeah, super helpful for the network.
Absolutely. I think that's a big takeaway for everyone listening in, that just networking, so many networking opportunities out there. You just got to go after it. And I think this is a good way for us to jump into the most exciting part of it that we all want to learn more about, is what is circle optics? So Zach, do you want to get started? Like, what is circle optics? What is the core problem you guys are solving in the world?
Yeah, certainly. So circle optics makes 360-degree cameras that are point and shoot. The way this got started was actually while I was a student back at the University of Rochester. I asked a mentor of mine this question. Google's got cameras on top of cars, mapping the planet, in Venice, Italy, the Great Wall of China, all over the place. And I was trying to understand, if you got these 360 cameras all over the planet, why can't I hook into a video feed and walk around the Roman Colosseum? Like, I want to see the Roman Colosseum in 60 frames a second, and I want to put on an Oculus Rift and feel like I'm there. Why can't I do that? Or why can't I be in the pyramids of Egypt, or anywhere I want to travel in the world? I don't want to see a single photo and then move up to the next block. I want to see a continuous walkthrough. And so I was trying to understand that problem, like why, if the cameras exist and they're clearly capturing the content, can I link into that feed? And my mentor actually worked on the initial cameras for Google, and he explained to me that they suffer these defects where you have multiple cameras and they have different perspectives of the world, and so they're seeing double imagery, kind of like when you go to a 3D movie and you don't put your glasses on, like everything is doubled, and like that's desirable when you're watching like a 3D movie because you put the glasses on, but in 360, that's an artifact you have to try to eliminate. And so he said, you know, because of this issue, parallax, you have to stitch every single frame together to be able to display it to a consumer. And 60 frames a second actually takes 1 minute of video will actually take you several hours to manually tweak and manually stitch together. It's a really complicated process. So imagine photoshopping, like, you know, you capture a minute of iPhone video and then you got to go Photoshop it for 5 hours, right? You wouldn't be able to scalably capture content on the scale that we were talking about, like on the world scale. So really, I just wanted to kind of make a better camera for Google Street View and make something that you can put onto cars, put onto people's backpacks, and walk around, and suddenly anyone can tap into a feed and be able to travel around the world. Be able to travel, put yourself in, and be able to explore the Louvre or the Roman Colosseum or whatever you like. And so that was really the impetus. And essentially got started kind of working on the problem as part of school, and couldn't figure it out. Got a bad grade in the final class. But I was like, I really want to do this. And I kept coming back to it. Moved out to Australia, and just kind of thinking about that vision of like, how cool it would be if my parents could kind of come here and see what it's like without having to leave their seats. See what it's like to walk the streets here. That would be pretty dope. And so I decided to keep working on it when I moved back to New York. And basically, we built the world's first parallax-free 360 camera. And it looks kind of like a giant globe. All the lenses are touching. Yeah, that's basically the technology. So it's completely stitch free, captures a perfect 360-degree image at the source. So you don't need to stitch together the fields of view, and produces a perfect panorama instantaneously.
Wow. That's really, really incredible. Like, I feel like that's just, you're bringing the world so much more closer to people in that way, like the experience. And I guess you're saving so much time for people, like all the companies, what they're using right now, that probably takes them a lot of time and resources to.
Yeah, that's right. It takes several hours, and you know, you have to spend months and months. You take a 10-minute video, you got to spend a couple months just stitching it together. And so most companies actually don't even jump into the game. Most of these content studios that make content for the virtual reality headset, you've got like 10,000 studios out there, and only a few hundred have jumped into the game so far because they're the early adopters. They're the ones that are working with the painful 360-degree stitching cameras that you got today. But we've talked to so many 2D studios that say, once you make this, suddenly I can use this, right? I don't need to be an expert in this new stitching software and all these different tools.
Yeah.
Once your camera comes around, all I got to do is click a button and it's just ready to go, like a normal 2D camera, just like your iPhone. Click a button, you take a video, and it's good. And then they could go do their normal editing, like, you know, all the other stuff that goes into making a cinematic film. They could do all of that stuff, but you don't have to worry about just getting the normal kind of film put together.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Really, it's kind of comparable to old film cameras where, you know, you would shoot what you're shooting. You can't see, you can't tell if it's coming out right. Then you have to go pay someone to develop it for you. And then you finally get it back, you know, a week later, and you look at it and you're like, oh, my finger was in front of it, you know? And that's they can't see it when they're shooting it live. They can't actually work with it or do anything with it until they've already paid for someone to stitch it in a while down the road. And then they get it back and they look at it and they're like, oh, there was an error in the scene and we got to reset up the whole scene and reshoot. So, you know, that's why people don't like to do it today. It's such a pain in the butt. Why would they want to? And then that's what we're fixing.
And kind of thinking back to history, you know, you go back to even the 1800s and like, you know, George Eastman and like inventing the camera in the first place. Photography, it has this history. It used to be really complicated, really challenging. You had all these processes, all these steps you had to take a photo. And then Eastman came along. He said, all you got to do is put this film in and you could capture a photograph anytime you like. Just click it and we'll do the rest. And so that's kind of what got the photography industry off the ground, because it was really challenging. And so 360 today is super challenging as well.
Absolutely. No, that's definitely that sounds great. Like I guess you guys are like starting this whole, making this much more accessible and much more easier for people. So now they could actually, because maybe photography was like magic at some point, right? It's like, how is this gonna work? But now the technology is there. It's like becomes a part of life. So that's super cool, and we definitely want to dive more into circle optics. But Zak, there's one question I was like very excited to ask you, is that from your perspective, what was the hardest thing about getting started? Because sometimes that is perhaps the biggest blockade, especially the earlier you are in your career, maybe when you're a student or something like that. So what was the hardest thing for you?
Yeah, and I think you guys, you were talking about before the show started in terms of, not many companies these days are hardware based. A lot of them are software based.
Yeah.
And starting a hardware company, particularly in a brand new space like a deep tech hardware company, not like integrating a few components together, but making something fundamentally new where it's never been manufactured. You can't buy off the shelf components. You got to design everything from the ground up. It's extremely capital intensive. And so that was the hardest part about getting started was, first off, kind of had to figure out a design. I figured out a design that worked when I moved back to New York and came up with the concept of how to build this. But the next step was, if I wanted to build a simple prototype, I had to go raise, 100, 150K to go put a basic prototype together. And at the start, it's family and friends that you're asking the money from. No investor, no angel investor, institutional investor is going to touch, a risky concept like that. So you're pulling this together from family and friends, and that's incredibly scary because you're asking them to make this significant investment, and you don't know if it's really going to work or not. So it takes a huge kind of leap of faith, and it's really frightening. And so that was probably one of the toughest parts, and kind of like sticking through and deciding to kind of pull the trigger on that. And then when we got the prototype back, it proved the concept worked, and we can kind of move from there. But it was a big leap of faith at the time.
That's really cool. Wow. I think, especially I guess with a hardware company, that's like way more harder, especially because just the capital intensive. As a software company, you can do an MVP run much more easily. So that's
for sure.
That's good to know. But I think so. Another thing was we were like curious about is that, and Ian, would love to hear from your thoughts first. Like, why did you choose entrepreneurship and not a stable career? Was like the trade-off thing that you thought about?
Yeah, so I had actually had a stable career for about 2 years prior to joining on. I had gone to undergrad at U of R, and then I worked for U of R for a time before going to graduate school at RIT. And really, like, my history of working for companies was working for U of R, the largest employer in Rochester, and then working for RIT, which is an extremely large employer. I worked for Rochester Regional Health for a bit, gigantic employer, and then I was working at one of the larger architecture firms in the city. We had around 600 people when I left. And I mean, I really enjoyed all of those jobs, but, thinking back to my parents, my dad owns his own company. My mom took a shot at owning her own company. And I really saw the appeal of doing that. Like, yeah, you're not working 40 hours a week anymore. You're working 50 to 60. And, it doesn't pay as well at first, but there's something really exciting about being on the ground floor or something. And, seeing the hard work you put in every day really pay out. At a large company where there's like 600 plus people, I felt like if I didn't come in for a week, someone else would just do my job. They could, just plug and play with someone else. So, really getting to feel like I'm making a big difference, not only in the company, but then seeing my company make a big difference in the market and hopefully one day the world, that means more to me than, all that stability and everything else from those other types of jobs.
That's awesome. Wow. Yeah. No, definitely like that feeling of being an impact and being able to directly make that difference. That's pretty cool. Zak, what are your thoughts on that? Why this?
Yeah, for sure. So fundamentally, kind of like early in my career, I guess, I'm super passionate about philosophy and kind of sitting on an armchair and just thinking about the cosmos and the universe. And so I kind of had a decision where I was like, I could pursue that route and maybe make some breakthroughs in terms of like physics and like new concepts, or I can maybe pursue this other route of entrepreneurship, where maybe I could try to make a difference in kind of the fabric of society in a different way. And I decided that because of all the kind of economic turmoil that's going on in the world, I really wanted to build businesses that were more fair, more just, and kind of were designed for good to kind of give back to society, because I didn't see good examples of that. And so that really motivated me to get started on the entrepreneurial journey, because I really want to see long term a more stable society and businesses that are more fair to the employees, more fair to kind of their customers, and distribute the wealth maybe more fairly. And so that kind of motivated me to get started on that path. And what I love about it is you sort of control your own destiny, and like you could work. Some jobs you work like 5 hours and you're exhausted. Here I can work 70 hours, and yeah, it's tiring, but it's really cool work, and you own all of it. Like what you do is like directly applicable to what's going to be created. You're not just like a cog in the wheel. You're able to kind of really control your destiny in a sense. So yeah, it's really fun. It feels really meaningful, and it's just so cool to be building like a new camera technology. Like I'm a huge geek, and that's just freaking awesome.
That's
really great to hear. Yep. So I was actually looking at some of the product offerings that Circle Optics has. Came across Hydra, which is, I believe, the first camera that you guys have launched, and there's some more in the makings, I believe. So do you want to talk to us a little about the product itself, and like what product lines are you working on?
Yeah, so Hydra is, that 360 system which we're building. We did the initial prototype, which Zach mentioned, which was the alpha system to get all of our patents and that. Right now, we are just wrapping up the designs on the next system, which is really our MVP and what will eventually be the product one day. So next year, we hope to start the beta testing with that system. So that's going to be, to start out an 8K camera, pretty similar with other things on the market, but it's going to be stitchless and instant and capable of live streaming. So that's really the big difference compared to those other cameras. Eventually we want to, make a whole, suite of product offerings. We noticed that a lot of people don't require a 360 camera, so we've been noodling around with a really cool ultra high resolution 180 camera, which we've gotten some interest from some large media companies, so I can't mention who, but some really exciting stuff there with a camera that would theoretically be capable of producing a gigapixel image across a 180-degree field of view. Thinking like a dome or what were those called? Those things we used to go to as kids that would do the stars.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. So, we've been playing around with a camera such as that, but, more recently, since the start of COVID, we've been in contact with, some military contractors and the government for a bunch of different uses for this type of technology. So now we're seeing how, the technological breakthrough, which Zach said, is going to be applicable in, literally dozens of different types of products. And then in the future, maybe even more than that. So, we're starting off with that Hydra system. That's the first one. We got to get that out the door, but really we want to fan out and do a ton of different things in the future.
Yeah. And eventually make this accessible for consumers down the road. So YouTube bloggers or really just anyone that wants to capture 360 film, because you can imagine YouTubers or people that want to do like 360 film, like for a hobby, they're not going to want to learn complicated stitching and having to figure out teach yourself 6 months of coursework and how to like stitch things together, and then B, having to spend hours and hours for every minute. It's just not really feasible for the mass market. So eventually down the road, we're going to move from professional and B2B to kind of distribute to everyone. But that could take a number of different forms as a company, how we get there. So we're focused kind of on step one right now, and that's the dream down the road. So.
Gotcha. That's awesome. I mean, I think really going for the mass market is so amazing. Your strategy sort of sounds like Tesla's too. When they came out with the Roadster, the most expensive product, really good product, and then get to mass market. So I think it's going to be really amazing for vloggers to have access to such technology.
For sure. And that's how we refer to it internally too, is the Tesla approach. And part of that just has to do with, like Zach said, it's a capital intensive thing. So start at the high end. That's where, the largest pain points are, and that's who's willing to pay the most. But it's a marketing thing. We all want to have that, high like Gucci brand thing for ourselves, right? We want that Tesla that's getting pushed downstream. We want the IMAX, in our living room. It's much harder to start out with like a consumer product and then try to convince professionals that it's going to work for them too. True. So, just from a marketing point of view, this seemed like the best way to do it as well.
That's great. That's really awesome. I love it.
Yeah. Really, really cool.
Yeah. So another question I had was about the competition. So are there any competitors that you guys have identified in the space, and what makes you unique from them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there are probably like 40 or 50 companies in making 360 cameras today. And most of the companies, like you saw some of the larger players like Nokia and Samsung enter the market. And they all kind of entered into making their own professional product line. A lot of them have been driven kind of more or less out of business. Nokia was driven out of business by companies based in Shenzhen who can really control the supply chain. And get access to cheaper, off-the-shelf, just normal spherical cameras. Thinking like GoPro rigs, for example. And they were able to drive the supply chain so they could drive, a $50,000 product down to $10,000. And that's really where the market is today. It's really controlled by a few companies, Insta360, Candale, Zcam, and a few others that have managed to get the supply chain kind of figured out. We enter from a different standpoint or different point of view. We're making a much higher end product. There's a need in the market for these higher end systems. And no one produces high end systems today. It's the number one complaint we basically hear from content creators all the time. They say, oh, my imagery doesn't work well in low light. It's very poor color quality. The image doesn't really work well because people are trying to make these systems really cheap. They're trying to make a very affordable $10,000 camera. And the customers are used to much more cinematography level systems. So we're going to enter at the high end with very high quality sensors, a very high quality product and system, much higher quality than anything on the market. At the same time, we're eliminating all the post-processing and the workflow. So there's no hassle. Users don't have to kind of worry about where are my stitch lines going to be when I set up a shot. My actors can't move across the set because if they move across the set, the stitching becomes harder. They're going to be completely free to shoot whatever they want to shoot, which is not something that can be done today with the current cameras. So that's really kind of where we are relative to the competition.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So you're really targeting the high-end market, making a product that really suits and fits their needs, as opposed to just mass making these products.
That's right. So the goal is produce these at for the very high end, and then we're going to move to slightly lower end with more industrial markets and industrial applications, somewhere between the consumer and the high end, and then eventually we're going to mass produce this at scale, probably working with other partners, people that know the supply chains, larger camera manufacturers, and eventually we'll produce at scale for the lower end markets.
Gotcha. That's very, very cool. So Ian, a question for you. What was it like when you came into Circle Optics and scaling up the company? I know you've got more employees. You guys are doing really great with the new grant that you guys just received from NSF. So what was it like from that journey of like starting off with, I'm assuming it was just Zach and you, and then scaling it up all the way here?
Yeah, it was a learning experience. When I joined Circle in early 2019, it was just Zach. So, while Circle was a company and it was incorporated, it was really more of a technology, still trying to figure out how to be a company and how to be a business. So, step one was, Zach going to pay himself for the first couple of years. It was, now we got to set up payroll. I got to pay myself. So we got to set up payroll and we got to get all the insurances and we got to do all that. And, just all those things that it's like growing up, and becoming, a real company. And really the two things that allowed me to do that, being that I didn't have experience to do that, one was being located in the Next Core incubator and the Luminate accelerator. So there's a lot of guidance there. And then the second thing was Google. Like, you find anything on Google. So it was, how do I do this? And an article on it, and you read through it, and it's like, oh, I have to go set up this. Well, what type of insurance do I need? What type of how do I do this? And you can find really anything on the internet. So those two things, just, slowly building up the company, within the first, however many months there, between January and June, I think we went from Zach to 12 people. Now, most of those were consultants, but just like the rate at which we scaled up our team, really to go after this goal of building this next system, it was incredibly fast and hectic, but we've kind of leveled out now. We've got our core members, and then we went from, growing in size to really scaling up our efficiency as a company. And I think, we're really getting to that point where I feel like we're operating very efficiently now.
That's really awesome to hear, and thanks for sharing like the whole learning experience, because I mean, like, Google's definitely an underrated source. Like, you can literally, even my job, I find everything on Google. Like, it's so true, but it's great to hear from you.
Yeah, with so many things. Like, is there a YouTube video that explains
exactly?
How to do it? Probably. Yeah. You will find it.
Yep. That's how I got through college too, guys. Honestly. Yep. Yeah. All right, so we're going to move on to our next most exciting segment, which is the rapid fire. We also like to call it questions from William. William is our boss, Shafud's and I's boss. So he has some questions. We're going to go super rapid fire, fun questions, and let's just roll with it. So first question for Zach, your dream travel destination?
Antarctica. I want a force field while I'm there, so like my body's like super warm. I don't want to deal with the pain of that, but I would love to see pristine wildlife and nature, polar bears, like all that good stuff. Yeah, that'd be dope. Or Mars.
All right.
Mars.
Or Mars.
There's no polar bears in Antarctica.
What's that?
Polar bears in Antarctica.
You might want to go back.
They're up north, I guess.
Yeah, there's down there.
Sweet.
Also, Zach, when you make that trip, you should take a 360 video of the whole trip. Just
that'd be so dope. That's the dream. I mean, one day when I travel, I just want to be able to take the camera and be able to use it, like go and like map, Roman Coliseum or wherever, and get back. So
next act will be a travel blog. Everyone stay tuned.
That's the goal.
That's awesome. Cool. So, Ian, next question for you. What's a secret talent that you have?
Yeah, so this will sound kind of weird, but people that work with me are definitely familiar with this. I'm super observant. If you use like two spaces after a period, which is a pet peeve of mine, I can call it out from like across the room. Like, you have two spaces there. And this actually goes back to like my past life and my past career being in architecture, and even prior to that, working as a construction project manager. Like a little ding in a wall or like something placed crooked, I can see it. It just jumps out at me, and it's so irritating. And I always have to point it out. So I'd say that's one of those weird secret talents I have.
And it works really well, like as a duo, because like Ian compliments me so well because he's super attentive to detail, very organized, and I like to be a little more big picture and kind of think like, where could this lead to and where can that lead to? And so it's a really good compliment to have someone who fills in your weaknesses, really well like that. So, yeah.
Wow, that's awesome to hear. Okay, Zach, what's your favorite food?
Favorite food? I've been cooking chicken karahi so much the last few days. And it is amazing. I cooked the best chicken karahi. I was able to get the recipe from my aunt recently. And my girlfriend's getting sick of it at this point because we've had nonstop, like twice a week. My dad's even saying, Zach, you need to back it off. You could have some biryani or I've been having a lot of that recently.
That's incredible. Do you want to share the recipe with us as a follow-up sometime?
Yeah, 100%. Great. So it's basically like chicken with like tomato, garlic, ginger. For those who don't know. It's a Pakistani Indian cuisine, and super delicious. You have it with like homemade bread, and very tasty.
Third act, a food blogger.
That sounds great. Awesome, guys. Okay, Ian, question. Yep. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Yeah, so you guys might even be familiar with this one, being U of R graduates. I don't know how familiar you are with Dean Paul Burgett. Unfortunately, he passed away in the past few years. But he was an advisor for our fraternity, and we had a lot of interaction with him. But I remember, it might have even been my freshman year prior to even joining Sigma Nu. I had gone to a talk of his, and there was this phrase he kept repeating over and over again: "If not you, who?" And I don't know if like that phrase changed my life, but I kind of realized it really encompassed something I had been already practicing my life, which is you look around at things and you say, wait a second, something's not right here. And rather than being like, who's going to fix this, everyone, which one of you is going to do it? You say, well, it's going to have to be me. If no one else has done it thus far, I should do it. So, really just, taking charge and going after things. And I think that also connects back to being part of a startup. And that's, part of the reason I'm here today.
That's pretty cool. Wow. Very, such a great guy. That's an amazing piece of advice. Totally can. Yeah.
All right.
Sid, you're up, right?
Yep. All right, Ian, I have another question for you.
Okay.
Share one fun or embarrassing memory of Zach.
Yeah.
Yeah, he already got me early on in the
Yeah, we went
redemption.
I get my revenge. Great. I'm not 100% ready for this one. Zach being, as he said, he's one of these big picture guys. Zach's so spontaneous too. He's always like random weekend, like let's just take off and go to the beach. Let's go have fun. So a lot of times I'm like cleaning up after Zach. He goes and he does something random, and I'm like, wait a second, you just left everything out. And he's like, oh, sorry, I ran out to do something.
I had to go to Antarctica.
Yeah. I try to think of a specific example, but I just remember when I first moved in with Zach in Brooklyn, and I remember looking around the apartment. I'm like, someone needs to organize this place. Recently, Zach was having some car trouble because his car had been here in Rochester because of COVID for so long. So he's like, oh, Ian, I dropped you off at the service center when I was there last, but they said they can't hold it onto it any longer. Can you go pick it up? So that was one of the things I did this morning, was going and picking up Zach's car and dropping it back off at his house here in Rochester.
He's like he's basically like my wife.
Yeah. Sometimes when I talk to his girlfriend, I'll say, Sarah, put my hubby back on.
That's so funny. That's really cool. I just love the whole combination, as you guys are such close friends and also running such an amazing company together. So that's incredible, guys.
It would be hard, honestly, with anyone else, because I just trust Ian so much.
Yeah.
We're super close buddies. So it'd be really hard to do this and be you got to be really authentic, really real with people on a day-to-day basis. And so doing that with anyone else, I think it's awesome that I get to do it with one of my best friends. So that's cool.
Yeah, and it allows you to recover too, because you have tense moments in a business relationship. You're going to disagree, and being able to afterwards, all right, let's go out and get a garbage plate and cool off, super helpful.
No, that's incredible, Ian. It's great to hear. Yeah. So Zach, next question for you. Describe optics to a 5-year-old.
Yeah. I would say that we are building the camera technology that will one day allow you to be able to roam around Venice or roam around another city that they know, Disney World. There'll be that will be you'll be able to go to Disney World with your friends from your living room couch one day, and we're working on the base of that what's going to make that possible. But someday you'll be able to go on all the rides in Disney World, and you'll be able to see it you'll be able to be on your couch and feel like you're there, and that's what we're kind of working on.
Well, that was actually pretty good. I thought I was going to throw you off, but that's a real founder. That's a real founder there. That's awesome.
All right. Last question, and this is both for you, Ian and Zach. Who's your favorite co-host, Sid or Sharfuz?
We have a whole leaderboard going. This is very competitive, guys.
Imagine. Yeah. Oof. Yeah. Hard for me to pick favorites, guys.
Get one.
I got love for you both. I can't.
Hey, Zach, just so you know, I was actually in the rowing team in Rochester.
Oh, yeah? Well, that does elevate you a little bit. Sharfuz,
I like Dragonite.
Okay, so I think Sharfuz wins this one. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah.
I got a lot of love for Rome, but I got a shit ton of love for Pokemon. So.
What about you,
I'm
Ian?
gonna have to balance it out here.
All right, I appreciate it. Thanks.
Ian did a better for me too, Sid. He was just being nice to you. All right. Thanks for being such an amazing guys. That was really, really fun. We're definitely gonna make some bloopers out of that, the whole segment. That'll be really fun. But now going to more of our bigger segment that is like just understanding a little bit more about how you guys are running the whole company and just building it so far in such a great way. Zach, my first question is for you. What is it like being a CEO?
I think particularly you have to learn a lot kind of on the fly, especially being sort of a younger CEO. I'm constantly figuring out things as I go. And you need to learn really how to recruit and how to keep the best people around you to fill in your weak spots, your gaps. Because fundamentally that's the CEO's job, is to surround themselves with the best team possible, the best people possible, because one person on their own can't do anything really. So, step one is kind of surrounding yourself with people to fill in the blind spots and the gaps. I think it's constantly kind of a learning journey, trying to understand what I don't know, try to own up to mistakes because they're going to happen often. And really fundamentally, the goal is build this new technology that's never been done before. And so it's just a lot of grind to kind of figure out to do whatever it takes to make that dream a reality. So yeah, I would say just a lot of grind, a lot of hard work, and being able to kind of continuously learn and have a beginner's mindset, because we are beginners in a sense at this thing. So.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, no, definitely. The learning experience, the learning mentality is really crucial, and it's great that you have a very humbling take towards them. You know that you don't know everything, and you're not the boss. You are learning from your team. I think that's very CEO-like. That's really cool. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, because I think for most of the time, Zach and I have been the youngest people on our team. Being that most engineers we've got have 25, 30 years of experience, we're usually some of the youngest people in the room.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah. Which is awesome, because you surround yourself with all these engineers that have been working in cool camera tech for like 30 years. And it's like, wow, you can just learn a ton, staying in the room.
Yeah. Cool.
Yep. All right, Ian. So what's it like running a company on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I'll tell you, one of the things that I've learned that I maybe wasn't so good with at the beginning is, at least in my position, it's only schedule half of your day, because the other half is going to fill up. It's always something like, I just got a call from the bank, or was just on the phone with our insurance, or, your employees are reaching out to you like, oh my God, my computer just died on me. Quick, I need a new one. It's like always something comes up. And, part of being in charge of operations is you're just a problem fixer. So you're constantly identifying problems and trying to fix them so that you can get everyone back working as quick as possible. I think really my only job at the company is to enable everyone else to actually do the work. What is actually producing profit for our company is what all of our engineers are doing. It's what the marketing people are doing. They're the people, really driving things for the company. I'm just here to work for them. I'm a big fan of Management 2.0. You think of management as a pyramid with the people on top, everyone underneath them. Well, Management 2.0 is that it's upside down. So I'm at the very bottom, and I'm supporting all of those above me, and I need to support them so that they can do their work. Because if they send me an email and they need to do something, know something, and I don't respond to the email for a day, then they can't progress on that task. So I always need to be ready to support them at any moment. And I think that's one of the things that I really learned is, it's very difficult to just say, oh, I'm going to turn off my email and go focus for, a number of hours. Between the hours of 8 and 8, I'm always available if one of my employees needs me.
Wow.
That's
I think
sweet.
that, and along with what you were mentioning earlier about you being super organized, I think that those two things just go amazingly well in like traits of a COO. So
Right. And I guess I personally have just a small follow-up question. So Zach, as the CEO, and this is for I just honestly just want to learn as well. Like, you are more facing the external stuff, the vision, the long-term product strategy, and everything, I guess. And Ian, you are more focused on the daily operation, making sure the engine is running. Like, am I picturing correctly, or how is the combination like?
There's also in my job a lot of managing the technology and digging into the technology. So I'm kind of like a systems engineer that kind of works across the board, understand where what's going on with the software, different components. And if we're missing something or we don't have a key trait on our team, and I'm able to fill in, I kind of fill into some of those pieces. And then also, like at the higher level, a lot of the job on a day-to-day basis is just doing the stuff kind of no one else can do. Or if you've got your engineering team kind of running and they're working on the product, I'm going to pick up the phone and get on the phone with NVIDIA or a customer support team to try to like unblock something that they're doing, basically. So it's a lot of that too.
Yeah, Zach really is the CEO and the CTO, and I'm really the COO and the CFO. But we share responsibilities all the time. So when we're in front of, a potential investor or client, I'm in the room as well. And then, like Zach said, something that Zach does say is everyone's got to take out the trash. We're at a startup, we don't got a janitor. So sometimes you look around and you're like, someone's got to take out this trash. So you just do it, right? And, realistically, when it comes down to it, I don't ever want to think like, oh, I'm this important person at the company. If I can keep all my engineers working on engineering 100% of the time and the trash needs to go out, suddenly I'm the most qualified person to take out the trash. So it's got to be done. And I think that's, just a lot of being at a startup.
Yeah. I think that's a really great way to describe it. It's amazing. But yeah, so I think the next question, and it's also one of the questions that was asked by one of our audience, Shelly, whom you may or may not know. Tell us about your fundraising experience. Like, what has been like so far? What stage are you guys in? We're curious to learn about it.
Yeah, and Shelly, for those of you who don't know, is the newest addition to our team and doing an awesome job of basically product development and some really cool stuff. So, sorry. Can you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah. So tell us about your fundraising experience so far.
It's been a lot of kind of so early on. It was a lot of family and friends to kind of get over the initial hump, and then the initial outside fundraising really came from Luminate when we moved the company into Rochester. When we were able to get to basically a prototype phase where we had proof of concept and a prototype that we can show to other people. Suddenly, a door opened up where we could demonstrate this to angel investors and try to pull in some money that way. So the first outside cash, outside family and friends, came from Luminate Accelerator. And we were fortunate enough to get accepted. That's when I moved the company over to Rochester, New York. And one of Ian's conditions, actually, for joining the company was if we moved to Rochester, there's no going back. Like, this is where we stay, and we try to, help out Rochester in the future too. So with that, we started to build a team, grow the team out here, and we got a second round raise from Luminate. So we were we were the fourth place finisher for Luminate, and so we raised a total of $360,000 through them. And we've also basically been scrapping together and kind of hustling on raising checks from angel investors. LinkedIn works amazingly well. Like me and Ian made a few trips out to the West Coast because there's a lot of cash out in San Francisco. Yeah. And so we made a few trips out there since starting Luminate, and basically just cold emailed a ton of people and set up meetings and got some checks that way. And also we one time went to like a diner and just set the camera up. We set up in like diners, coffee shops, like all over the place. We got like the interest from like the diner's founder. First they said you can't set it up, and then I showed one of the waitresses wanted to see what it was, so I showed her what it was, and she said, "Let me get the boss." And she brings the owner around, and he's
they've got one of the original Macs ever created, signed by Steve Wozniak on the wall, and it's got like all this eclectic stuff. And the owner, back in the day, I mean, he came out when we met with him, and he's like, oh, Tesla signed their first deal over there. And he's pointing out all these spots. So when Zach and I were in there, he introduced us to some investors. He wanted a photo of us meeting with the investors holding up the camera, because he's like, when you guys get big, I'm going to put this on the wall over that booth, you know? So he had to like find us our own booth that wasn't already the Wozniak booth or one of the other ones, so that, you know, we could have our own thing. So, yeah, I mean, just, you always got to go after everything. In addition to what Zach was saying, I think it's important. Don't get stuck in the mindset of like, we have to find VC money, we have to find angel money. A lot of our success has come through being open to very, you know, different things. In addition to investment we've raised, we've been going after grants a lot. So going after manufacturing grants, small ones that are 40,000, going after, you know, large, you know, $250,000 NSF grants, of which we just received one, you know, entering pitch competitions to try to win surprise money. You know, and sometimes it seems like, well, you know, it's only $2,500, but it's good practice to keep on your feet and keep pitching and keep being in front of an audience. It was actually at one of those pitch competitions where we met Shelly, because she was in the audience and she saw us pitch. And Shelly's so interesting, and she's such a go-getter that as the judges were kind of conferring amongst themselves, trying to come up with a question, Shelly just raised her hand from the audience. She's like, I've got a question. And they're like, yeah, sure. Like, let's go to some of the audience.
And she told me a super hard question too, around like Insta360 and the competition, and yeah, just drilled me on like a super hard question, and put me on the spot. And I guess based on that, you know, she liked us more as a company, so decided to come on. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. No, we heard the Shelly story a little bit. Shelly told us about how she ended up like working with you guys and how the introduction. I was like, dude, that's like how you get a job. Like, that's amazing. That's a great story. We're gonna be featuring that at some point. That's incredible. So so congrats for the NSF grant as well. I heard that that's something more recent that happened for you guys. So so that's pretty amazing. So are you guys trying to also like look to fundraise more in the near future as well? So would be like a Series A or something for you guys, or like another big seed round?
Yeah, we're raising 500,000 right now, so we're in the middle of this round. We're basically about halfway through the round in a sense. So the first round of money was meant to get the prototype built and the IP made. Yeah, and then we got the prototype built, we made the IP, and then the second round was to take that basic prototype and build a production quality version you could actually put into a customer's hand. And also to make an IP portfolio around the base IP. So we're a little more than halfway through that $1.5 million round right now. We need about 500K more, and then we'll be basically over the hump, and we'll have that system that we can put into everyone's hand and actually start to drive some revenue with and get some larger deal flow coming.
That's pretty cool. Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, and that's coming in at kind of a rolling basis, because it really goes back to, and starts with the money that we received from Luminate. So we had won last summer, and the money, you know, takes a little bit of time to come in, and then we pulled together some angel investors, and, you know, we're thinking we're going to be able to scrape together the rest of it earlier this year, and then COVID hit, and our trips to the West Coast had to stop, which had been, you know, reasonably successful. And, you know, a lot of people, just with the uncertainty, they all tightened up, like, well, I don't know what's going to happen with the market, so I'm not willing to spend any money. And it made us really reassess things like, oh crap, you know, what are we going to do? We're partway through this round, and it seems like everything frozen up. So, you know, we had to be really slim and tight and, you know, do everything as efficiently as we could. But part of that was us saying, wait a second, the government still has money. Let's really take the time and go after one of these grants. We had talked about it, but like, you know, what better time to do it than now? And, you know, luckily we were successful in getting this NSF grant. And, you know, if we go for the phase 2 when we're done with this, that's another $1 million. And with matching funds that you can get, it can be as much as $1.5 million, which is not only enough to finish this round, but, you know, give us some more money to continue on afterwards and do some other interesting things.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And before COVID, we were actually on par to sign a really nice contract with a potential customer. It was going to be a $750,000 JDA to develop a customized system for them. And so that would keep the company running for another year and a half, basically kind of working specifically on this customer's needs and their requirements. But the customer's funds actually dried up because of COVID. And because of COVID, they lost all the revenue. And so they had to cut the project and a bunch of other things. We literally had the paperwork in our hands. We were about to kind of get started, and all company wide, they had to shut down R&D. And that kind of drove us to, we said, we got to scrape together and we got to figure something out. So we applied for the NSF and we were fortunate to get that. But yeah, it's just kind of, you try one thing and sometimes you're about to take off, fails, you try another thing and keep going.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. I think that's so interesting to hear.
Yeah. And I know we're at the 1 hour mark and we promised to keep you guys for an hour, but it's been such a great conversation. So we're going to go for 5 more extra minutes of your time. I think it's a good time to just jump into some of the Q&A and get those answers quickly.
For sure. So let me bring up some questions. The first one's actually from Shelly. So she has another question. What will be the distribution channels for the 360-degree cameras?
Yeah, so it's a good question. Essentially, the main way we're thinking about distributing the first product is it's a really tight-knit group of about a few hundred content creators, and it's relatively easy to kind of access and try to get in front of customers because we're solving one of their biggest problems and their biggest pain points. So Shelly's actually been working through a lot of this and getting in the door, getting in front of different customers and kind of lining people up for when we first release the product. We now have like 25 LOIs from different people that once we pull the system together, they're going to be some of the first people that want to maybe rent the system or be able to use it. And we're continuing that process really by guerrilla market tactics because it's a pretty small, it's everyone in that market is on the same Facebook channel, the same Facebook group. So they all go to this 360 professional Facebook page. It's very easy to kind of get in front and get meetings because when they hear parallax free camera, such free camera, everyone wants to take that meeting and see what you can do. So
I think it's important. We recognize as well where our expertise lies. We're a small startup, we're ambitious, but we recognize that, producing thousands of these systems ourselves is probably not feasible. And, everyone on our team, Zach often describes them as a bunch of optics nerds. These are deep R&D guys who have worked at some really amazing companies over the years, but they're not manufacturing at a large scale type people. So we're going to look to partner with people who are used to manufacturing at large scales, who are used to certain markets. So after we get beyond that first phase of direct sales and really proving ourselves out, we're going to move into working with larger companies who are able to produce thousands of these at a time and, really sell many of them. And we're just going to do what we do best. We're going to keep developing technology. We're going to develop new systems, and we're going to continue to push those innovations downstream to these manufacturers who can get them out cheaply to as many people as possible.
Yep.
Wow. Well, thanks for the great question, Shelly, and I hope that answered your question. Next up, we have Dominic.
Dominic.
Do you see any specific pros and cons of starting a business in the Western New York, specifically in Rochester?
Yeah, actually, huge pro. And I would say the pro is I was in New York City before this, and it's a struggle to try to find the specific talent you need for doing a camera company in New York City. It exists. There are people in New Jersey. There are people kind of all over that can do this stuff. But it's very fragmented. It's very challenging to find the right talent. And typically the salaries, it's very expensive because there are so few people that can do it. And I would say the biggest pro to starting the company in Rochester is it is just flush with optics talent. Reid Hoffman says, if you're going to start a business, you've got to be in the right ecosystem, the right environment to start your business. San Francisco is the right environment for mobile and web app companies because you have so many people there in that space, immersed in that space from the business side, from the technical side. When it comes to starting a camera company or an optics company, and even generally certain hardware companies, Rochester is this hidden gem because you could take money from the West Coast and your money will go twice as far, 3 times as far in Rochester, and you have all the talent here, you have all the suppliers here. It's just the perfect ecosystem. And I think eventually companies will catch on, and I'm surprised Google's not here yet with the level of software talent that we've seen and electrical engineering talent we've seen. So.
And I think that's going to become a bigger thing, especially after COVID. I think REI just announced they're going to go fully remote with their workforce. They're selling their headquarters. And Rochester actually has a really great standard of living, and it's super affordable city. When I tell people what we pay for rent for our offices and what we pay for rent personally out here, their jaws drop. They can't believe how affordable it is. And, being a Rochester native is part of the reason I wanted Zach to keep the company here. You guys went to U of R, maybe didn't get off campus as much. I see that happen too much with students at U of R and at RIT, but, get out into the community, be here during festival season, stay around for a summer, and you'd be really amazed at how livable the city is and what a great place it is to be.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. It's just the winter.
What was that?
It's just the winter that makes it hard a little bit.
The winter, the 3 months of summer are awesome.
That's right. I used to go back home at wintertime when I was on campus at U of R, and it's negative 20, negative 30 over there. I come back to New York City, I'd be wearing a t-shirt, and my friends are like, "Are you crazy?" I'm like, "Dude, it's like summertime over here compared to where I just was."
That's very true.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I think we're near the end. I think we have the recommendations bit.
Yeah,
so,
why don't you go ahead with that?
Yeah, so guys, what's your advice for aspiring entrepreneurs and students who are looking to probably starting a business? And as a second part to that is any specific advice for especially optics aspiring entrepreneurs? Mm-hmm. So Zach, why don't you start first?
Sure. I would say a couple things. So for aspiring entrepreneurs, I think one, you just have to kind of get started. Start anywhere. You gotta get started. And you gotta kind of just decide to commit to building a prototype. And a big aspect of starting a company is not giving up. There are going to be 1,000,001 reasons to kind of give up and fold along the way. You just have to kind of figure out the one reason that keep pushing and keep striving. So perseverance and not giving up, I think, is the most valuable trait any entrepreneur can have. For starting an optics company, I would recommend, probably with the experience I've seen, if you can start a software business first, it's going to be much easier, way simpler. Starting a hardware company is really challenging. There are a lot of challenges along the way because you have such an expensive supply chain. You have to prototype a single part will cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars versus when you write code or when you write software, you write your own code from your house. If there's a bug, who cares? Because you'll just rewrite it, you'll redo the code, and it'll be done next week, right? And you could ship the product much more easily with much lower costs and much less overhead, and you could distribute it much more easily. When you start a hardware company, you have to be aware it's very capital intensive. It's usually done by bigger players like Sony, Samsung, etc., because they've got the budgets to be able to throw away $500K at a time on a single bullet and try this out, try that out, and let's do iterations. That's chump change for these larger companies. But as a startup, that's the challenge. If you want to go with optics, that's the thing you have to overcome. The flip side is once you can overcome it, if you decide to go that route, you have a much better competitive moat because it's harder for other startups to come over that hump and to come over the financial limitations. And if you have something deep technically and you can patent it and you're in a really unique space, that's also a very strong competitive advantage. So you get that later on. But just be aware of the costs and keep persevering.
That was really valuable advice, Zach. Thank you for that. Ian, any thoughts on that from your perspective?
Yeah, and perseverance and being able to overcome and stick to itiveness and all of that, absolutely something that I recommend. Even though I work approximately 13 out of 14 days at a time, but take time to treat yourself. Even if it's for like a couple hours on a Friday, get out of work, go get a milkshake, just go to the movies, do something. I have a naturally high metabolism, so maybe this is controversial and other people don't do this, but I'm always like, all right, I need a break. I'm going to go get some donuts and, just take that moment and you'll go a lot longer. You can't work around the clock, so you need to have those little breaks and you're going to be able to, withstand a lot more if you do that.
So important. I'm thinking also that episode from Parks and Rec, Treat Yourself, with and what's his name? Tom Hartford. Yeah.
Amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, great advice, you guys. That was really valuable, and I think the audience would definitely appreciate that, and we'll definitely put that up on our next shorter segments. Very, very
Sure.
valuable, guys.
Yeah.
Sid, are we near the curtain closing? Do we have any other questions to throw at them? Because we have been throwing a lot at them so far.
No, I think we've thrown enough, but I think I'd just like to highlight again what Zach and Ian mentioned about how they've been overcoming a lot of challenges, even through COVID, like the whole deal they spoke about. I think it's definitely about persistence, and that's one of my biggest takeaways. If you're doing anything entrepreneurial, it's about the long term. It's not about really just surviving today. It's about you got to keep going on. There's going to be a tomorrow.
You get
Yeah.
so much rejection, and take that rejection and let that be fuel for the fire. Be like, I'm gonna prove that person wrong. I'll prove, let that be fuel. So
Yep.
Yeah. And
Thanks so much.
Yeah, I'm just going to quickly say, like, thanks you guys for like doing just fighting through that, because for you guys, the world will get that 360-degree experience.
It would be dope one day. A child growing up in 19th Ward or Brooklyn or wherever can roam around the streets of Venice, Italy at night with their friends. Like that's the dream.
Exactly. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, Sid, we gotta make our videos a 360-degree as well with Circle Optics. Like our
We
whole
do.
video series. So
Most definitely.
let us know where to sign up for the first prototype, like the beta version when it's launching.
Yeah, circleoptics.com.
Yeah.
You go to the homepage and you can sign up to send us like the idea. Anyone can send us the idea of what they'd like to beta test, and let us know. So
Yep.
We should let everyone know though that we're in the hundreds of submissions for beta testers.
Wow.
So we do filter through them, and it's important for someone to have like a really good idea of like, I want to go do something unique in 360, and that's why I want to use the camera versus, hey, I'm just a hobbyist and I want to play around with it, because sorry, there's only going to be one next system for people to beta test. So you got an idea.
That's amazing. But yeah, guys, thank you guys so much. And our audience, make sure to follow Zach and Ian, especially follow Circle Optics, because they are doing some incredible things. And we are super excited to see what you guys are doing next. And make sure to, for all such amazing, if you guys want to listen from such amazing people, make sure you follow Careers Uncorked. Check us out our website. And Zach and Ian, thank you guys so much. Any closing remark from you guys, just overall?
Dragonite is dope.
Dragonite is dope. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us, guys. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Right.
Have a great rest of your weekend.
Yeah,
thanks,
you too.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye, guys.
Thanks so much for watching, guys. Make sure to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, and consider subscribing to receive a notification next time we post. Catch you next time.
Wow.